Good morning. It's the Traveling Cup, episode 3.
Welcome to the Traveling Cup podcast, connecting you to coffee-loving entrepreneurs, writers, and think tanks building a better tomorrow. Now here's your host, Mark William Guay.
This episode's brought to you by Climbing Fish, a group of connectors based in New York City that are dedicated to reconnecting people through conversations that matter, and in doing so, helping you find your true genius. Find out more at climbingfish.com. Well, welcome to the Traveling Cup, the show meant to help you have the best start to your day. I'm on the course of interviewing some real movers and shakers that are doing some really amazing things to make the world a better place. I interview them to find out how they got to where they are now and share their insights with you. Today, I will be taking you back to my old roots of acting and talking with Lindsey Caplan, who teaches us how improv can improve your professional life as an entrepreneur and leader, as well as improve your personal life too. She shares her insights and a few funny stories, including how a random chance meeting with Matt Damon performing Shakespeare in the Park in New York City can allow for impromptu reflecting and meaningful improvised discussion. For show notes and links to what we talk about, head on over to thetravelingcup.com or join our Facebook page called The Traveling Cup. So, take a sip of whatever you're enjoying and let's get right into it. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, The Traveling Cup. On the show today, I have improv extraordinaire Lindsey Caplan. Lindsey's here today to talk to us about improvisation and its role in leadership, among other things. She's about bringing out the best in people, which is why I'm sure you've tuned in. I am extremely humbled at how much Lindsey has accomplished, having shared her expertise in leadership development with such names as Columbia University and DreamWorks. She's also on the board of Applied Improvisation Network, and she also had a hand in Daniel Pink's latest book launch. Here to talk with us today about tools for navigating business without a script, I welcome Lindsey Caplan to the Traveling Cup. Welcome, Lindsey. What are you drinking today?
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for having me. This is such an honor. I am drinking some iced tea in one of those huge 1-liter glass bottles.
Ooh, like a big gulp, kind of?
Big, because I'm too lazy to get a glass. So that's what it looks like right now.
That's fantastic. Sounds delicious. I am drinking this. It's late where I am. It's not the morning, actually. So I don't want any more coffee. I'm drinking this Ticino chocolate, organic, Maya herbal coffee thing. I have no idea what it is, but it is delicious. All right. Well, let's go ahead and let's start talking about improv. So, Lindsey, before we even delve into your background and how you ended up in the unique role that you have, can you first explain to me and our listeners what really is improv? Is it like Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Sure, I'm happy to explain and debunk a little bit of the myth. I think for a lot of people, their sort of foray into improv may have been watching Whose Line Is It Anyway, or shows like that, or reading Tina Fey's book Bossy Pants, for example, and reading about improvisation. I think improv, let's talk about what it isn't first. It's not stand-up, meaning it's not scripted. And it's also not completely free form, meaning anything goes and we can do whatever the heck we want. Because the thing that actually makes improv, most applicable to the business world is the little bits of structure that we have in place that help improvisers communicate on stage and navigate all the ambiguity that we have. Because improv, we are making everything up. We have no idea what's going to happen. We might get a suggestion from the audience, like we ask for a word and it's dog, and we have to go improvise something around this word dog. We have no idea what's going to happen. But what helps us succeed on stage and collaborate and communicate is these tiny bits of structure that we have in place, these principles that improvisers learn and practice over time.
Do you mind defining that a little bit? What do you mean by tiny bits of structure? I know you referenced doing improv on stage, but how does that apply to when you're doing improv as, say, a leadership role?
Sure, absolutely. So improvisers, the myth is that we're completely winging it, and we might seem really unprepared. Like we have no idea what's going on. And that really, couldn't be further from the truth in a lot of ways. These tiny bits of structure that I referenced are principles that guide us, that are sort of what we use behind the scenes to navigate the ambiguity that comes with improvising. And these tiny bits of structure are tools, you might say. And these tools are things that people listening to your podcast might have heard before. Tools like yes and, which I think is the most universal sort of phrase that people may have heard, and it comes from the world of improv. Other tools are, making your partner look good, accepting offers, embracing failure, starting positive, listening. These are tools, but also skills that improvisers practice and rehearse so that when we do get on stage and we are making things up, we have something to fall back on. Because if I were to get on stage and our suggestion was dog, and all we did was argue back and forth about what the scene was supposed to be about, the scene would not go anywhere. By having to rely on this principle of saying yes and accepting everything my partner says, I have a way to build the story and keep moving it forward. So it looks like it might be scripted in some cases because we're just collaborating so well on stage. It seems like we are speaking the same language and so in tune with each other.
So the yes and I'm pretty familiar with, maybe not as much as some of our listeners. So the yes and principle is like what? When you're having a conversation with someone goes, yeah, but... So instead of kind of doing that route, you say yes, and so instead of retreating back, you kind of move forward. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, the goal is to have a productive conversation, whether I'm on stage or I'm off. So by sort of incorporating this phrase of yes and, it's two parts. One, by saying yes, I'm accepting what you've said. So yes, I've heard you. And the and is I'm going to build off of what you said. So if we were just to stop at yes, you were to say the sky is blue. Yes, the sky is blue. Now where do we go? I have no idea. I haven't added anything to the conversation. By adding the and part, I'm not only accepting what you said, but I'm building off of it. And together we're co-creating something out of nothing. And the opposite is yes, but, what we also call blocking. So not only am I going to stop the flow of the scene, but I'm basically going to disagree with you right on stage. And that goes against all these principles, not just saying yes and, but I'm not helping to make you look good on stage. So by saying yes and, by accepting your offer, by making sure that I'm listening and paying attention so I know what to yes and, I'm helping make you shine. Which, just in a basic form, seems like a great way to, develop leaders, not just leaders, but really anyone, to, help bring out the best in others.
Right.
So
It sounds like it actually would be really helpful in all kinds of relationships, right? I mean, romantic relationships, professional relationships, the idea of yes and, as I'm learning it from you, it sounds like it is active listening. You have to really focus in on what the person is saying, and then you're also affirming that you've listened to them by not rebuttaling with the but saying yes and building on it. Is that true?
Absolutely. And I think that there's also a common fear of, well, what if I don't agree with what this person said? Do I have to say yes and? Then what? What if I don't agree? And it's not so much about agreement as it is about acceptance. So I may not agree with everything you say, but I have no choice on stage but to accept it, to find something that I can accept and move forward with. Whether it's the spirit of what you've said, a piece of what you've said, I have to really pay attention to understand that I'm listening so that I can find something to move forward with. So often we aren't even paying attention to our partner, and we are, just waiting for our next turn to speak. By remembering and really practicing this tool of yes and, I'm really, really paying attention to you and making sure that I'm building off of the last thing that you said as opposed to just waiting for my turn. It's co-creation is really what it is.
All right. So, Lindsey, before we apply what yes and means more to what you're doing with your work and that, can you kind of give our listeners an idea of how the heck did you get in improv? I mean, how exactly did you end up where you are today? Tell us a little bit about maybe some work you've done in the past, any school or what life events kind of really influenced you to this new route that you're in.
Sure. Well, this is going to sound kind of cheesy, but it was a long process of yes-anding things that came my way. So improvisers are really good at trusting their instincts and letting them guide you and saying yes and to things that come our way. And I think what brought me here was just a lot of noticing, what different opportunities were what effect they were having on me, they were having on others, and where I could sort of add the most value that felt, the most true to who I am and what I have to offer. The sort of short story is I was always a screenwriter. I observed human behavior that way and took that and put it on paper. And I realized at a certain point that I wanted to do something a bit more meaningful than just writing words for people to say on film or in theater. And I had wonderful mentors who encouraged me to take an improv class. This was about 5 or 6 years ago, I think. And I said, no, that's silly. No way. I blocked their offer, essentially, is what I did. And I was scared as heck. And with a little more convincing, I did it. And I took my first improv class at Bats Improv in San Francisco, California, where I'm from. And slowly but surely, I saw how these principles applied to what I was doing off stage, both at work and at home. And I had an opportunity to join the education department at DreamWorks Animation in the Bay Area, and had a wonderful mentor and boss who allowed me the opportunity to start bringing these principles into our education department and to start teaching improv at DreamWorks. And so I built up my teaching muscles there. And as you probably know, Mark, teaching is learning twice, as they say. And so I just started teaching and sort of building a tribe of people who wanted to get out of their comfort zone and try a new thing. So it really took off from there, and that's why I say, I really just followed my instincts. And also did what I was a little bit scared to do as well along the way. But I saw the impact that improv was having on not just myself, but the people around me, and wanted to bring those tools to where I worked because I believed that they really had an impact and could help the people at DreamWorks. So,
wow. So it sounds a lot like, a lot of people that I read have been talking about the way to live your life is find a precipice, find that sort of where you're not falling off the cliff, but you're also not walking a very easy route. And if you walk that fine line, of risk and safety, then it kind of is how you progress forward. And it sounds like you found an opportunity through improv to kind of really master that a little bit. So.
Yeah, I think it's a metaphor in a lot of ways as well. I mean, improv is a tool set, but it's also sort of a way of life for me and a lot of other improvisers that I know. I mean, we say yes and to things. We follow our instincts. We work hard at making others look good and embracing failure. I mean, these are tools that extend, definitely off stage, and why I'm really convinced and along with a lot of other people, that these are tools that can really have a strong impact in a lot of different ways.
Well, it seems like it would be really worthwhile too, especially for the type of world that, students are growing up into, and even just the economy for someone who's, in the middle of their career. There's no such thing as knowing really what the economy is like now, because we're all kind of, it's like the wild, wild west, right? With the economy becoming more global, and the idea of what, computers can't do and what can't be shipped overseas cheaper is what we humans need to do now. And so, it's definitely this kind of ambiguous, living with ambiguity and learning how to improv that seems like it would really be helpful for that. So Lindsey, can you talk a little bit about what type of clients, have you worked with? Can you give us an idea of how, we can add improv into our daily lives by maybe sharing some stories of what you've done in the past?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll answer the first part about clients and things like
Sure.
that, just to give you an example. So it's the last couple of years, I've worked with a variety of clients. I've worked with community groups. I've worked with some nonprofits. I've worked with business schools. I've worked with a couple of startups, a pharmaceutical company, a large consulting firm. It's really run the gamut. I think the great thing about, well, one of the great things, there's so many great things in my mind, is that it's extremely applicable. It's universal. And because in improv we rely so much on the debrief, so doing an activity and then debriefing around it, there's so many different ways to structure it that it really fits a bunch of different issues. So it's not just, improv isn't just for leadership development or presentation skills or for creativity innovation, but it's very, very, very customizable, and that's really the great thing about it. So I've been able to use it in a bunch of different ways, and so have a lot of my colleagues and peers. And then the second part of your question was what, Mark? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It was, can you give us an idea of how we can add improv into our daily lives? Now, I know that's difficult because, our listeners range from, budding entrepreneurs to corporate, CEOs. So just, is there any tips or anything that you can maybe give where we can add improv into our daily lives? Now, I know you talked about the yes and that's a really valuable tool. Is there anything else that comes to mind about, what we can add into our lives to make it perhaps a little more enriching or allow us to maybe develop more productive habits?
Sure. So I'll say this about habits. Something I would encourage your listeners to do is count the number of times in a day that you say the word no, and count the number of times that you say the word yes. And I think sometimes unconsciously, we block a lot of other people's ideas or creativity or contributions just in the amount of times that we say yes, but, or that we say no. And we all know how it feels when someone gives us the encouragement to go try something crazy or to take a risk or to, fail. And we're often not aware of sort of what we're doing to discourage those things that might be really important, might be the next big thing, or might save our company money or keep someone happy, all these sorts of things. So a great thing, again, I'm repeating myself about improv, is that because we rely so much on experiential learning and practicing these behaviors, the goal is for them to, at a certain point, become new habits that we use and that we have a shared language that we can all apply and refer back to. So that's one thing I would encourage.
I love reading your blog post, by the way. It's fun.
Thanks.
It's even just your taglines. What was it? At Shakespeare in the Park, Matt Damon and a Harvard professor. So I enjoyed that. Matt Damon, by the way, it's funny that you bring him up, and maybe Matt Damon's listening. He can write in.
Hi, Matt. Call me.
Hey, Matt, what's up? He is a man that as I look further into his career and what he stands for, and not just the movies he chooses to act in. Anyways, he's someone that I realized 2 days ago in watching We Bought a Zoo that he's a man that I really respect. So kudos to Matt Damon out there.
Yeah,
'cause I know he's listening. So
I will say this, and that blog post, may have a funny title, but I think it really shapes the kind of educational experiences that I am passionate about, creating and facilitating for others, in terms of using the performing arts as a backdrop to sort of have a conversation about something real and tangible in an organization or in a culture. So to use these tools from play and storytelling and improv and be able to refer back to them. I mean, I know people may not be familiar with this blog post or the Matt Damon event, but I mean, I think these tools from theater and from the arts are extremely important, not just for kids, but for adults. And we don't often rely on them enough because they seem like, oh, maybe I'm not creative enough, or that's for kids, or I don't know how to do that, or we think that we're too, logical or linear and whatever it might be. But I mean, it's unbelievably freeing for a lot of people once they regain the ability to play. And, laughter is obviously a wonderful tool, not just for releasing stress, but for bringing people together. So beyond sharing these tools of improv, the fact that it's done in an atmosphere that promotes levity and connection and trust is another great thing about it.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, actually, because it sounds like those are the things that people need to do to be productive in this, conceptual age, as I think, our friend Dan Pink coined it. But that we live in a conceptual age now, where what a computer can't do and what can ship overseas
Yeah.
is what the humans need to think of, and that's like what Einstein said or whatever. You can't to solve the problems of tomorrow. You can't solve them with the thinking of today. So you need to think innovatively. So that actually segues perfectly into another question that I had for you, Lindsey. This is a hard one, so just have fun with it, but improvise.
Oh, no pressure.
Wow, that was a lame joke. Okay, so all right, how important is playing fun in the learning process, and perhaps maybe could you talk a little bit about, are we allowed to have fun and play at work? I mean, now when I grew up, okay, I thought work was called work for a reason. It was you put in your hours, you punched in, you punched out, you put on your tie, whatever, and it was like, oh, I'm honey, I'm home, and it was time to kind of just believe that those 8 hours or whatever didn't exist. So, talk a little bit about that. What about playing fun? I mean, is that just a thing that Google does, or is that something that maybe we should all do?
Well, I'm going to be very biased in this, but also try to share some of the more universal organizational psychology thought around it. To me, I think it's unbelievably important to be able to feel like you can be yourself at work. And if that means that it's okay to laugh and be silly and to, have a good time and also, do good work, then so be it. I think play and improv and things like that, I think they are synonymous more with the Silicon Valley culture or things like that, or Google or Facebook or whatever it might be. But if you ask me, not only are we allowed to have fun, but it should be a prerequisite. I mean, I think laughter brings people together, unlike so many other things that we have. I mean, just think about going to a movie or going to, see a band or whatever it might be. You have this shared experience that elicits an emotion that bonds people together unlike anything else. And laughter is a great way to do that. It also releases stress, all those sorts of things. But when you're playing and feeling free to sort of explore new things or laugh with your colleagues, I mean, it's wonderful, how it can transform a relationship. And that's my 2 cents. It's part of my value system, and I do believe it's seeping into cultures because work and life are no longer separate. And I think this is a great way to, help alleviate some of that.
So this is a weird question for you, but there's an element of Zen, I think, in improv.
Absolutely.
Having to focus on the present. And I can get all into what exactly Zen means, enlightenment, understanding, and all that stuff. But what do you think it is about our culture that perhaps leads to an idea of this super busy mind and distraction? So for our listeners, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because I tend to have 10,000 words in my mind and I say only 20. Is Zen is, when you're trying to just go ahead and do this right now, go and, press pause and go ahead and just breathe in and out, and pay attention to what your thoughts are. And for most people, unless you're like the Dalai Lama or someone really cool like that, you have all these thoughts that kind of rush into your mind. My toe itches, I'm thirsty, I need to feed the cat, or things like that. So Lindsey, can you talk a little bit about, what's your opinion? What do you think it is in our culture that perhaps leads to this kind of busy mind and distraction that we have?
I think, I'm guilty of this too. Always having to have something to work on or something to do. It's hard to sit still for many of us. We feel like we should be doing something else or creating something or working on something, always to the next thing. I think improv is one of those rare places where you have no choice but to be completely present. Because in that moment, it's not just about you. It's about the other people on stage. And if I'm not present and not paying attention, then I'm not collaborating very well. I'm not helping make them look good. I'm not listening to them. I'm not paying attention to their ideas. I'm very much just focused on myself, which, I don't want to get too much into this debate, Mark, but that might be sort of some of the issues that we're facing as a culture, is a little bit of meanness going on as well.
That's a super tough question to ask, and I just thought of it, and it's a fun one just to kind of think about, or maybe that's just me, but I love that kind of question. And I know that, Lindsey, when I first met you and you taught me about what improv is, and I tried it, and you told me about this one principle too, where all you do is, and listeners, you can try this, is you just literally plant your feet into the ground, and it forces you, just that physical grounding forces you to kind of ground your mind, even if it's only for a couple seconds, but it brings you right to the present. Lindsey, for our listeners, I'm thinking for them right now, and I'm sure that a lot of them are saying, yeah, this is all well and good, this is great. I want to have fun at work. I mean, heck, I'm there for a really large portion of my life and my time, and I want it to be an enjoyable experience. So for our listeners that perhaps are not entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, they're not working for themselves, and they have a boss that maybe isn't creating a work culture that allows for this type of fun and play improv, where failure is accepted, this innovation kind of thing. But the people that are listening are like, you know what, I want this. Do you have any suggestions for them of maybe what they can ask or bring to the boss, or should we just direct them to lindseycaplan.com? What do you think?
It's hard to change a culture by yourself. I think, to borrow a motto or a phrase or a technique from Seth Godin, I think if you can find your tribe of people at work who are on board with this, and you can find a way to form a practice group of people, or acceptable small risks that you can take. I mean, that's what I did at DreamWorks. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like everyone was like, yes, improv, we can't wait. I mean, it's a tough sell there too, to be honest with you. But if you can start small, whatever that might be for you, I think that's something, and you never know where it will take you. I would say, even if you feel like you can't do this at work, there are improv classes and theaters and shows in every major city in the United States, and definitely around the world. So go take a class. Go see a show, start to practice some of these things, read a book about improv, whatever it might be. And improv isn't the only way, but find what it is that can help you feel a bit more creative or collaborative, or push you in a new way. And I would say, go try it.
Right.
That's my suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. I think too that perhaps for our listeners, maybe not even try it at work. Go ahead and take an improv class, or even ask a couple coworkers to go with you. But if you were to go to, say, an improv class and you were to check it out, and you were to take those skills and those lessons from that improv, and bring it into your personal life, and then you can kind of learn how, well, you know what, maybe I can adapt that to my job or my professional life, and kind of add that in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the people that do this work are all people who saw an opportunity and said yes and to it. And so there's nothing stopping anyone from doing the same.
Great. So, Lindsey, could you talk a little bit about who you are? What now, I know I'm a man who's obsessed with morning rituals, and this comes from a competitive sports background. So I start my day off very scheduled, and I have a certain thing that I do. And I like to always talk with our guests and see what their morning ritual is. Now, it's okay if you don't have one. That's totally cool if you improvise in the morning. But is there anything that you do that you would consider your morning ritual, or maybe some things that you could advise for our listeners to do in the morning? Because people that listen, they want to be the most productive that they can be.
Gosh, I don't have one, Mark. I know that I should. And now I'm like, I need to make one. I don't have a morning ritual besides like the normal stuff that people do when they get ready for work. But to answer the second part of your question, in terms of what they can do to start their day, I mean, as much as we practice these tools, tools of an improviser, sometimes under stress or under tough circumstances, they're not conscious. It takes a while to remember to say yes or to make someone else look good. So if you can find or create a trigger that will remind you to say yes and, whether it's a Post-it note on your car windshield, or an email to yourself in the morning, or it's on your calendar, something that can remind you of this behavior that you're seeking, that would be a suggestion of something you could add to your morning ritual or your daily ritual.
I like that, and you're gonna think I'm a major dork, but I'm gonna put this out there, and I'm gonna let my listeners know that just recently, my wife, who's brilliant, she went ahead and on our ceiling, she put this this note with this beautiful little painting that she did, and it says, "Something amazing is going to happen today." And it's funny, Lindsey, that you talk about those quotes, because she just did this last week, and it's only been, a little while that it's been there. And already, just that's the first thing that I read when I wake up. It's like no other thought can be in my mind. It's the something amazing, and it's, that positive something amazing is going to happen today. So I like what you're saying, because I know, and I'll tell my listeners firsthand, that puts my mind already into that, that positive mindset that I hope to be.
Can I add something about that?
Yes, of course.
So what I love about that is it creates a feeling, right, that sticks with you. And that's exactly what these sort of going to an improv class or trying something new or practicing yes and, these are the feelings that stick with you, these experiences, and that's why you want to keep doing it. You remember how it feels when someone says yes and to you, and so you want to keep repeating it. And having that emotional trigger is a great way to, keep you on that path. So I love that, and I might steal that idea, Mark.
You're more than welcome to. All right, Lindsey. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add to our, and tell our listeners about? Is there anything upcoming in Lindsey Caplan's life, or anything that you'd like to add to the podcast?
I'd like to add a shout out for you, Mark, and just say how lucky I feel to have been introduced to you, and so impressed by the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you very much, Lindsey. That means a lot. And, that's exactly why I started this podcast, really just to talk with people like you, because about a year ago, I started just saying to myself, you know what, I want to be as productive as I can and make an imprint in this world. And so I started going out there and seeing what other people are doing. And that's why I started the podcast, to share their story. And that's how I felt when I was first introduced to you through a mutual friend. And, and I love what you're doing. And I wish you the best of luck in your continued journey at Columbia.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So, all right. Well, Lindsey, could you go ahead and just tell our listeners where can they find you, and perhaps if you want to share any contact information?
Absolutely. So my website is lindseycaplan.com. Lindsey with an E and Caplan with a C. And you can also find me on Twitter, Lindsey Caplan, LinkedIn. I love getting mail or, whatever, notes, anything. I love talking about this stuff. I love hearing how people have used it, challenges they're having in using it, anything. So I'd love to hear from your listeners. So thanks a lot.
Fantastic. And just to put in a shout out to you, Lindsey, your tweets are very funny. So, Lindsey, well, thank you so very much, and cheers to you. I'm toasting you with my drink here, and you enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that about does it for the third episode of The Traveling Cup. I hope you enjoyed that talk to Lindsey Caplan about improvisation, amongst other things. So head on over to thetravelingcup.com. You'll be able to see the show notes and links to some things that we talked about. I hope you enjoyed listening. All right, well, I've got a kitten biting at my toe, and it's about time I go feed him dinner.